Hello, this is an update to the Kaiju engine. Um, so when I originally set this up to do videos on every pull request, I had a lot of time on my hands. I was a month and a half off of work for vacation, and uh, it seemed feasible then. So I realized soon after that it's not exactly feasible for someone who has a full-time job and also is a father of two kids. So I love my family and I like to spend time with them. So being able to code and sit with them and play with them is kind of important for me. So I will try to go and back update some things to kind of go over what has gone in at least. So here's some updates, and I will show you right now what happens when I'm not restricted by the video. Um, since the last video, I was talking about, I think, adding a label or something like that. Well, since then, I added labels, input boxes, checkboxes, and sliders and progress bars. I added the Vulcan renderer, so everything is rendering with Vulcan now, which allows you to um, actually debug the shaders. And I also added an HTML and CSS UI system, so you can use HTML and CSS to generate UI. It's a little incomplete, but I'll show you a couple of examples of that right now. So first, I'm going to go into the shaders folder, content shaders, and we're going to run this build command. Oops, build. And I'm going to do a -D in here to make debug version of shaders so that we can see it inside of RenderDoc and be able to debug those shaders. The next thing is we have HTML and CSS here, so I have a sample test.html and a sample test.css. Here's the HTML. You'll see that it does allow including the CSS files via this link, and this just looks in the relative assets folder. So you'll notice that we're inside of content UI test.html. So if the CSS was in a subfolder of UI, you could do my subfolder slash test, my subfolder slash test.css. That would work too. Next, you see we have a body, we have a div called with a class main menu. We've got a span here for the title, solitaire sums. This is for a reason because I am going to show you that in the current state of the engine, you can create a game. Although it's not very pretty and there's no editor or anything like that, but you can create a game. We're going to create a game called Solitaire Sums. It's a game I created. I think I created it last year. It's a card game. It's solo. It's it's just this fun little solo strategy game. So anyways, we have our title, solitaire sums, and we have three buttons here. They are menu buttons with on-click events. So when we click, it's going to call play game. This one's going to call show settings. This one's going to call show rules. And then inside of the test CSS is very simple. We have our button. You'll see that several things are already supported: background color, border radius, text alignment. So this is our base button. And so notice uh, the tag is supported, and then the classes on top of that and IDs are supported as well, and they all combine as you'd expect. I haven't implemented the like important thing yet, and I don't plan on implementing all of CSS. Somebody who is very excited about CSS and HTML can come in and add those in. It's very simple. Everything's stubbed in. I can go over that in a little bit. So main menu, the menu button here has a width of 100%, a height of 72 pixels, a margin on the bottom, so you can have button, and there will be a little bit of a margin in between them. And then we support font sizes, and you can use EM, PX, whatever. Then you'll see this is the menu title here. This is the span that we have at the top here, solitaire sums. And we have a width of 100%, text align center, font size 48, margin bottom, the color of the text will be white and the font will be bolder, so we'll use a bold font. Then we have a main menu, which is the outside. So we're kind of going backwards here. It is positioned absolute. Its width is 50%. Its left is 50%. Its top is 50%. And then in the we do a calculation here: transform, translate -50%, -50% to center it on the screen. Then we have a background color, kind of this like I don't know. It's like a green table, like a poker table, I guess, color. And then we have some padding around the edges of 10 pixels. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and run this, and we'll take a look at our UI menu with the CSS results. Now our buttons aren't using textures, but you'll see they do have the rounded corners. We have our bolder text here. The text is a little cut off. That's okay. I have an issue. I'm going to be making an issue for fixing some of this MSDF font stuff. And then you'll see we have play settings rules, and we click on play. It says click play game settings, and click show rules. So this has our menu that's done through CSS. Now I'm going to open up Render Doc. Okay, I've got this all set up here to launch the debug executable. And I'll take a capture here, and then when we come back to take a look, you'll see that we're now inside of Vulcan with our order independent transparency. So we blast out our quads, and then we blast out our text, and then we blast out the text at the top as it has, it's a different font face. This is a bolder font face. So now we can say, like, right click, let's say on the button here. And then we can go to debug. And we're going to have a couple of passes here because this is using order independent transparency. So we've got some stages here, but you can right click on that, go to debug. And now you can actually see the source code, and you can step through the source code. F10 pauses my video. So I think I can do stuff like let's say that we want to check out, I don't know, this line here. Run forwards to cursor. There we go. And so you can like hover over, see the values here. So this is much better than OpenGL, where we can't debug shaders to see what's going on with our code. So at least now we can actually debug our shaders and check out the values, check out what's being sent in as part of our uniform buffer data and all of that. Let's see if we can hover over these guys and see their values. And yeah, we're in the fragment shader here. We can also go to the mesh, right click on this guy, debug vertex shader. Now we're in the UI vert. And we can see the values being passed in here from the golang. So let's just go forwards to there. So now we can see like data, vpos, all that kind of stuff. So this is a great help for debugging shaders. It was a bit of a nightmare in OpenGL. This is much nicer. Cool. So that's that with the shader debugging, and we have to have the I have an issue for getting the compiler and all of that working with compiling the SpearV shaders, because currently I have GLSLC installed on my computer, and if you don't, you won't be able to compile them. So we have something for pulling down the source code, and we're going to put it into an external folder here. There's an issue for it, and then we'll be kind of building that locally as part of the setup of the project. Now, what I want to go over now is some of the HTML, CSS, UI stuff. It's pretty straightforward. There's inside, I've moved the project around also, so we don't have all the folders on the top. It's inside of the source folder. If we go down to UI markup, you'll notice that there's a bunch of stuff here you don't really need to care about. For the most part, you can just go straight to the CSS. And then we have some subfolders here, and you'll see like functions here. So if we look at the functions, you'll see like calc is implemented here. This is how calc operates. Transform is somewhere in here. There's a lot of them. There's helpers to just kind of make it simple. This is all the built-in, I think it's all the built-in CSS pre-named values. And then some helpers for pulling numbers out for, let's say that you need to know if it's a percentage or pixel, EX, EM, CM, all that kind of stuff. And you provide it with the context of what you need for, in this example, the font, or you can get the length of something, whatever. Some helper functions for getting that. And there's some arithmetic because you can do like plus or minus or whatever in there. Here's all the properties. There's tons of properties, tons and tons of properties. You'll see, let's look at like CSS border. You'll see that we have some predefines here. And then the actual border creation here. So you have a process function, and in that process function, you can do what you need. You'll notice that border just calls all of the other borders based on what has been passed into this function. So let's look at like border top, for example. So you do border top width and this kind of stuff. So essentially, every single one of these properties have this process function. We'll go to one that's not implemented here. So it has this process function. You get the panel that you're working with because everything's a panel unless it's a label. You get the element, which gives you all the context of the HTML. You get the values of all of the rules. So this is for the CSS grid row end. So these values are going to be whatever was supplied to that. So it would be like this or this right here. And I don't think I have any with more than one, but if you had multiples, that's why it's an array or slice. And then you have access to the whole engine through the host to do whatever you want. So let's go to a simple one like font size. So in this process, you'll see that we ensure that we have a value, otherwise we return an error. And then we say set the child font size for this element. We're passing in the element. The element gives you access to the UI as well, so you don't actually have to use this panel. You can use either or. So it's just that the element has a abstract UI interface, whereas the panel is just so you don't have to cast it yourself. For example, labels don't cast a panel, so I just supply both to make it easier. And then you call this guy, for example, we're getting this font size, which we use font size here, 48, for example. So we'd be passing 48 as a string, and notice it's a 48px here. This one is a 48 1.5 em, for example, so there's two different ones there. And then when you come in here, you have the element, you're just pulling the label out of the element, and then you're calling set font size on that label. So it's very straightforward once you have the UI elements and all of this. So this is just everything that I could find, every property. Most of them are not set up. All the ones that I like to use are. Most of the ones I like to use are. And we have pseudos here for like if you want to get the nth child, for example. This is the code for saying that I want to get nth child. And of course, these get really compounded. Like I want the nth child of the nth child or whatever, something like that, which I do not support because it's a little too complicated at the moment. So you may get some weird behavior with that. And then you have, that's basically it. You have your functions, properties, and rules, and those are the three that you'd go in to add new ones or update the CSS, which also totally means we can create our own CSS properties, and we don't have to explicitly stick to the ones that are set up, for W3 or web or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so quite a bit of work, as you can tell, since my last video. My last video I don't feel like was that long ago, maybe a week ago. So getting a fully implemented order independent transparency Vulkan renderer in with much more complex UI and HTML and CSS. There's a lot of stuff that can get in when I am not doing the videos. So I'm very sorry. I know I was very adamant. Every pull request can have a video, but man, like I said, full-time engineer with my own crunch times that I have to do at work, and a father who wants to spend time with his family. So that's where that is. But I will be updating whenever there's these major kind of updates here. So I added the HTML and CSS, even though it's against my better self, because I do like configuring UI with like a structure and then just having it build out the UI. But I feel like a lot of people know HTML and CSS, including me, and it does make it more readable and easier to code. So if we can have a little bit of parity there, programming tools and windows and UIs and all that sort of stuff for the editor is going to be that much easier. And also, when you develop your game, you can use tools you're familiar with for all of that. I've done a ton of web stuff in my history, but I am ultimately a game engine programmer, a very low level programmer. I program in assembly and all that sort of stuff. And most of the time when I'm in Go, I'm not actually doing any web stuff whatsoever. I use it for tools and game engines and like very some low level tracing, all this other stuff. So yeah, I'm not like that's why I made the comment about the whole HTML and CSS kind of not being on the forefront of my mind. But I do like that it's in and I will use it. And I hope others do too. And I hope this also shows the power of a very simple UI system where you just have a panel and a label, and you can just do whatever you want with those two primitives. And of course, I haven't set any textures for the panels or anything, or the buttons or default textures or anything. Oh, textures are supported. So if you do like background, CSS background, is it background? CSS background image. Yeah, see you can do the standard images, and this will pull from the assets to use that image for the panel. But anyways, you can use with a very primitive UI system, you can build out really expressive stuff. So HTML and CSS is not the end of designing UIs. We may create a UI spec so you can write it through code very easily and not have to deal with HTML and CSS if you don't want to. And we can also take the HTML and CSS and compile it into a binary format so that we're not passing strings along with our final builds of the game. Although some people may want to so that people can mod their games. That's up to them. I'm trying to think of if there's any more interesting things. Oh yeah, since I'm not doing the videos for every pull request, that means that nobody else has to. But it would be nice if you want to do one. We'll put it up still. If you don't, that's fine. I will, if it's a big enough feature, I will go and kind of make an overview of it as I'm doing in this one. Other things that I added was support for Xbox controllers. I think it'll support any controllers on Windows. So controllers are now supported as well. Let's see. I added a package called klib. That's Kaiju lib. It's just a bunch of random stuff. So like it has stuff for checks. So you do like must return, should, all that kind of stuff. We have constraints here. One of the ones that I like a lot is this repository one where I could just call not implemented yet and pass in an issue ID for GitHub, and it will just put out that link for you in the console. So if you hit something that's not implemented, it can encourage you to contribute. So yeah, just some little things like that that were added. I have a generators folder, which is where I put all of our other tools. This is the start of an MSDF generator, but we have a task for getting the tooling in for that. Okay, I think that's all the major things I can think of for right now. Yeah, so if you have any questions, please let me know. If you want me to elaborate on anything, please let me know. And you can also head over to the repository and post in the discussions or issues or anything like that. And we can continue chatting there. So thanks for watching. I'm sorry that I have to break my what was it? My saying that I would do a video with every pull request, but as you can see, I can do a lot more with my hands untied, and I am more than happy to kind of go over the engine through videos in this post view and kind of give a high level overview and then go in depth with any major questions people have. So awesome. I'll see you guys in the next video.